Welcome to Film Never Lies. This is episode 1. I'm your host, Luke Willson. So this is technically a football show, and on the back end of this, we will be talking some ball, some hot drama stories in the NFL, getting into the nitty-gritty of a few of my favorite plays. But the reality is the meat and potatoes of this show is going to be bringing in guests from all walks of life to kind of tell authentic, real, raw stories. And right now, with the baseball playoffs sweeping the country and the run that the Jays are on, I figured for episode 1, who better to bring in than Michael Saunders? I mean, the guy grew up in Victoria, BC, played for the Victoria Mariners in the BC Premier League. He gets drafted by the Seattle Mariners, has a great run there. Oh, nickname is Captain Canada. He plays in the 2008 Olympics for Canada. And remember those iconic Jays teams that went to the ALCS in 2015, 2016? Who was that sweet swinging lefty in the 2016 run that hit 381 in the playoffs? He was an MLB All-Star that year. None other than Michael Saunders. This guy's been there, done that again. He's played for both franchises. I figured who better to bring in and talk ball right now than this guy. So without further ado, I'd like to bring in Michael Saunders. Okay, Michael, before we get into any baseball chat, any grinding on what's going to go down on Game 7 tonight, something has lived in my head for, honestly, the better part of a decade. So in Seattle, when I was playing for the Hawks, all the, serious chats we'd have in the sauna, I don't know if that's a thing for the baseball guys at all, but we'd all stroll into the sauna. And we had a gentleman from Miami, and he was good friends with somebody on the Cardinals, and I'm telling you, this has haunted me, man. He started talking about playoff baseball, and he goes, guys, you'll never believe this. We got to go in the sauna. So we get in there. He's like, one of my boys is on the Cardinals, and he said to me that for the playoffs, they would have a rule where you can't drink beer after 1:30, and 2 a.m. was the curfew the night before the game. So I was like, no way. The whole locker room went nuts. It was like running through our locker room as wildfire, because if I can preface this, when you're on the road in the NFL, and I'm not making this up, we go to the floor, no family, no friends on the floor. They would wire up the stairwell with an alarm. So if anybody walked on the floor, an alarm would go off. You'd have a cop 24/7 at the elevator, cameras everywhere, and bed check was one of the coaches knocking on your door, slotting the key in, and coming in with a flashlight. And if you weren't in that bed, it wasn't a debate. You just got fined. They took it right out the check. So can you just I want to hear from the source. What is there a curfew? Is it actually 2 a.m.? How does that work in the MLB?
First of all, okay, so that's fantastic. But no, every team I've been a part of, there's never been a curfew whatsoever. And I think it's, okay, so here's the biggest difference with baseball and most major sports is baseball, you play every single day, right?
Totally.
So no days off, right? It's like 162 in about 180 days. So the grind of all that, curfew, my last curfew was in college. They used to call them hurricane party checks. So I went down to Florida, and all the guys there are talking about how pumped they are for the hurricane party. And I'm this little guy from Victoria that the only hurricanes I've seen have been on TV, and they've wiped out whole cities. And I'm like, what are we talking about here, guys? They're like, yeah, party at my place. I'm like, nah, dude, I got to go home. But yeah, hurricane parties, curfew check after those for my old coach, but never in professional baseball. And I think that's why. And just because you play every day. And so funny enough, in the 2004 Olympics, I think it was in Athens, Greece. I wasn't a part of that team, but we got warned. I was a part of the 2008 Olympics going into Beijing, right? And Athletes Village is basically all these countries coming together. They put up.
That's also been talked about in the sauna.
Beautiful, dude. It's a thing, man. And so the Baseball Canada, not Canada as a country, Baseball Canada got warned going into Beijing that we were going to get booted out of the Athletes Village if we were anything like the 2004 Athens team, because apparently those guys partied hard, and that's just what sort of we do in baseball, man. And I'll never forget all the death stares that we got from Olympians once they found out that we were baseball players. However, we stood out like a sore thumb. Okay, we are the most non-athletic athletes in that Athletes Village. And the death stares that we got at that, because these people are training like 4 years for sometimes like a 10-second event. We're like, oh, this is just our day job, dude. Like, we do this every day. Like, no, we're out partying and staying up late. And yeah, so to answer your question, man, long story short, 0 curfews from any team that I've been on.
Including playoffs. Like when you guys were in the ALCS and for the Jays, there's no like, hey, make sure you shut it down early tonight. I'm sure guys are, but you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I guarantee you guys are. I think that's more of like a unspoken rule amongst each other, you know, and it would be more so the players policing each other. Yeah. That's just like, for me, that's just disrespecting the game. You know, you get all the way to the playoffs, you grind. It's not just like game in, game out, but the off season and everything like that. I think there's this unspoken rule. Be a pro. Like if you want to go out, have a cocktail, whatever, no big deal. You've done it all season long, but just don't be an idiot, you know, and it doesn't come from the coaching staff. It shouldn't have to, nor should it come from the players. I think that's just one of those things like, hey, why are we here, guys? We grinded for 6 months playing every single day. Every game means something now. Let's not, you know, just throw it away.
Yeah. Amazing. So again, one other thing you just mentioned there is kind of policing the locker room right now in the NFL. I know you're a football guy. The whole Miami Dolphins situation with Tua Tagovailoa kind of coming out, having the players-only meetings. I've been in a lot of players-only meetings. That is a thing in the NFL. Mm-hmm. It's generally not an X and O meeting, though. It's kind of like, hey, you know, the locker room's a bit fractured. And like you said, there's a pretty big difference between playing 162 games or 16 when I was playing or 17 now. Mm-hmm. Would you ever have a players-only meeting in the show? And what would those be about?
So I was really only a part of, one that I can remember, maybe a couple. Players-only meetings in baseball, you know, they don't happen too often, again, because you go back to playing 162, right? So if things aren't, you know, we lose a couple in a row, we lose 3 or 4 in a row, nobody wants to do that. Does it happen? It happens to the greatest teams of all time, right? Like that's what happens when you play every single day. So it's one of those, again, you go back to the unspoken thing of, okay, guys, let's turn it around. You know, no big deal. We lost 4 in a row. Tomorrow's a new day. And that's kind of the beauty of baseball, whether you're going good or bad, you know, you get to play again tomorrow. That's one of the beautiful things about the game. So if there is a players only meeting, it's typically something to do with, you know, extracurricular stuff, you know, like family stuff, or, you know, maybe you shouldn't be bringing your girlfriends around where the guys are going out. Or
so it's more off the field.
Off the field.
Or you're saying it barely happens.
No. So it barely happens. But if it does, it's usually something off the field where you're kind of breaking an unwritten rule of the clubhouse, or if you're just kind of disrespecting the game and you're not playing the way the game is supposed to be played on the field, you know, you're not being a pro. That's when you might come together as a club. And, you know, kind of nip it in the bud. But there's definitely certain things that, you know, when you have a players-only meeting, coaches aren't allowed in there. Things are pretty serious. So I've only ever really been a part of one of them. But, it doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, okay. I would say it's a little more common, like with the Tua stuff in the NFL.
Yep.
Generally, we'd probably have 2-ish a year, 3-ish a year. Not very, very rarely. One year there was some drama after we lost the Super Bowl. We'd had a few of those. But a lot of it was more so about being on the field. And we just didn't want we're around our coaches, and it's such a different game where our coaches are around us and we got a call every play, where sometimes you're just like, hey, let's get these guys out of here. This is on us to execute. Like, let's have a players-only meeting. But pretty standard. What wasn't standard is Tua going in and calling out people for being late to the players only
to like the national media too, eh?
Yeah,
burying everybody.
Totally. So that was a bit strange, but we're gonna pivot real quick. I think, you know, you obviously had a great career with the Mariners. You had a great career with the Jays. Your Captain Canada was one of the nicknames, which we're gonna get into in a sec. You're from Victoria, BC. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you played for the Victoria Mariners in the BC Premier League.
Correct. So it was like fate, dude. It was fate I drafted. But yeah, the Victoria Mariners, who are still part of the BC PBL.
Yes. So we're going to talk about getting drafted, but right now, do you have a pony? And just so those of you who are watching this is being aired, this is being recorded before Game 7. I'm going to give you a chance real quick. If you want to be a Nostradamus, you don't have to. Make a prediction and tell us also who you're personally pulling for.
Okay. All right. I kind of figured this question was going to come up.
I'm jamming you up
me
here.
on the spot right here.
Listen, you played for Canada in the Olympics, so you're free. Yeah, there's no checking your Canadian card. You're Captain Canada. Okay. You live in Victoria.
I like that. Okay,
you're Captain Canada.
Okay, so a lot of stuff goes into this thing here. So came up with the Victoria Mariners, like you said, right? Playing for a Canadian team named the Mariners. I get drafted by the Mariners, and like the Mariners will always hold a really special place in my heart for that. They didn't obviously just develop me as a player, but they also developed me as a man. You know, they taught me how to be a pro, and that was something that I had no idea about as a 17, 18-year-old kid coming out of Victoria. But growing up, obviously a huge Jays fan, right? I was a huge Jays fan and a huge Griffey fan. So that was basically it. And, the 92, 93 World Series, obviously, with my dad on the couch, hey, what's this all about? And like just getting locked in. And from there on out, I was watching the Jays religiously, right? They're on every night. So when I got traded, I played with Seattle for 10 plus years, give or take. When I got traded to Toronto, I was absolutely ecstatic. And it was a dream come true. Like growing up, when I realized that this could be an opportunity, I was like, God, I want to play for the Jays, man. Check the box, unreal experience, bucket list item kind of thing, right? So go to, back-to-back, 15 and 16 championship series, and then kind of, bounce around for the remainder of my career. Both teams are very special. And like, for me, this is kind of like a win-win, It's kind of like a win-win for me. Whoever goes on, but at the end of the day, there's only one team that are keeping the lights on in my house. And that's the Seattle Mariners, baby. Let's go.
Let's go.
Let's go. I can only work for one of them, and it's the Mariners. So they're paying the checks right now. I work for the Mariners. So let's go Seattle. Come on.
Listen, I lived in Seattle for a decade. I mean, as you know, we played across the street from each other. The Toronto media is probably going to kill me for this, but I got to be honest. I'm pulling for the Mariners too, dude. I love it. Hey, I'm going to get killed for this, but I'm happy for both teams. But if I had to pick, I'm going for Seattle.
I'm happy for both teams too. Like I said, this is a huge win-win for me.
Yeah.
It really is. So like, I care a little bit more, but I'm going to be happy either way. But I care a little bit more that hopefully Seattle goes.
So who's winning tonight?
Oh, dude, I got to go with the M's. I got to go with the M's. Who's Toronto pitching? I know Kirby. They're giving the ball to Kirby.
Bieber's on the mound. Bieber's on the mound.
Okay, so we saw, I think Kirby's stuff plays a little bit better. I know he got hit around there last time, but pure stuff-wise, I think he's going to play better. Even though the Jays have seen him. I wonder if Bieber's going to get away with his stuff again now that the Mariners have seen him. But I think everything's pointing towards the Mariners tonight. But we'll see, man. We'll see. But, hey, if we're going to go down, you and I will go down together.
No question.
The Toronto fans can bury both of us.
No question. Now, speaking of Toronto, though, I do want to talk about your time in the Jays a little bit, specifically 2016. So, again, we talked about the differences between football and baseball. And for us, it gets strange because when you're only playing 16 games and your contract's not guaranteed, every game feels a bit like a playoff game. Obviously, the playoffs are a bit elevated, but you're in week 13 and you're looking at the schedule and you're like, if we don't pull this win out, like we're not going to the playoffs or we're not winning the division or we're going to be on the road. Is there a major difference in focus between playoffs and regular season in baseball, or is it pretty similar? And then I want to talk about you were on an absolute tear in 2016, the playoffs, so I want to get into that. But first I'll ask, big difference as far as like your approach to the game for the playoffs, or do you try and keep it level no matter what?
Okay, so approach to the playoffs as far as a player, it's like you try to keep it just like every other game, right? You understand that a loss, as far as the magnitude goes, is probably similar to what you were talking about. I don't know, but, games, obviously, every Sunday means a lot more to you guys, right? Because if you lose, you only got 16 more kind of thing, right? We go like, hey, we lose today, tough one, beauty of baseball, like I referred to earlier, is we get to play again tomorrow, no big deal, right? And you play 162. I think the biggest thing that's the difference in playoff ball compared to regular season ball is you hear about the analytics a lot. The analytics are built for the long haul. So they should be able to tell you over 162, there's enough data there that you should come out with what the computers say that you're going to come out as. Whereas playoffs, it's like, don't forget about the eye test, right? And so, like for me, the other day, Schneider not going to Hoffman and Sir Anthony Dominguez there. It's like, why'd you bring those guys in then? Why'd you pay them all that money? Like, that's what you brought them in there to do for that situation. Like, you're dreaming when you sign Hoffman to that 3-year deal, you're dreaming that you get a chance to bring him in late in the game in game 6 of the championship series or whatever it is, game 5. So that's where I think playoff ball is different. It's more of on the coaching side. Sometimes you just got to put away the analytics, man. And like, what's your eye test? What's your eyes telling you? And it goes back to me, it goes back as well a couple of years ago when you're taking out Barrios in Minnesota. You know what I'm talking about? Like, They went into that game saying, hey, analytics won't let me, or it's not good to have a starting pitcher face the lineup 3 times in a row. Yeah, that may be true. But today, Barrios is the best pitcher on the planet. Like, that is your win option right now. You ride him until you can't ride him anymore.
If I can interrupt you real quick, Michael, when you're on the 1-yard line in the Super Bowl and you have Marshawn Lynch, I don't care what the
gotten you all the way down there, right?
Can you just give him the ball?
After you've gotten all the way down there.
Correct. I understand second down, there's some clock things at play, but I would have preferred if we just wedge blocked and put Marshawn right up the middle. But
4 times. Hand it to him 4 times. You know better than I do, but I was like ready to throw my beer at the TV.
Yeah, I was on the field for that one, and I was pretty dumbfounded. but this isn't about that. Okay, so real quick, because I really want to know, in that 2016 ALCS, and you had the kind of freak injury the year before, not ALCS, playoff run, you hit 381. You're playing for the Jays. One of your 2 nicknames is Captain Canada. You're on fire. Like, do you just get hot in baseball? Does everything look like a beach ball? Like, what? That had to be Toronto in itself, as much as we're both pulling for the Mariners, the stadium's rocking. What was that experience like, being from Canada, being on fire in the playoffs for the Jays?
Unreal. That's an experience that, like, you got to be there to really understand what I'm talking about. I'm kind of getting chills talking about it right now, but it was literally tonight. Dude, tonight there's going to be like a seismic earthquake going on in the city of Toronto. Just wait. The place was shaking. I can remember it like it was yesterday, dude. The place was just rocking and shaking. And we started selling that place out in 16 in like early June, mid-June. That's when I think, like, early on in the year, the hockey's still going and everything like that. But we were winning and we were making a push for, back-to-back playoffs. And then that place was sold out come summer. Couldn't find a ticket. Every home game was rocking. I say there's best fans in the game. So I know, like, I may be rooting for Seattle here, but best fans in the game. You go to, I'll always call it the Sky Dome.
Yeah, Sky Dome. Of course,
Sky Dome. I'll always call it the Sky Dome. But
we're big Sky Dome people around here, trust me.
Yeah, big Sky Dome, yeah. And but the Rogers Center is going to be killing it tonight. The atmosphere is going to be electric, and it's going to be second to none. It's going to be like a rock concert in there tonight, man.
That's pretty cool.
It's going to be incredible.
Okay, and then the last thing, we got to end with a feel-good story. This is one of the coolest things, and as a guy who played a small bit of baseball growing up, I always say the best feeling in sports that I've ever experienced was hitting a home run. When the ball hits your bat, you know it's out there. So you obviously had a pretty cool journey. You touched on it. Grew up in Victoria, down in Florida for a little bit, drafted by the hometown Mariners. Got to kind of live your dream on both the Seattle side and playing for Canada's team in Toronto. But your favorite player growing up was Ken Griffey. And can you tell us kind of what was going on personally and the moment you hit the home run and just with the pink bat, how you got the pink bat? Because to me, I thought baseball's known for this stuff, the storybook stories. And this is, one of the best.
Yeah, no, yeah. So in 2010, I started in the minor league. So I got my first call up in 2009. And that's when I met Junior. He was at the tail end of his career. And for those of you who don't know, he came back after a long time with Cincinnati. So he came back in 2009 and 10 and kind of his like farewell tour kind of thing. Yep. And so I got called up in 2009, got to meet him then, become a teammate of his. And then going into 2010, in 10 spring training and got sent down right at the end of camp. So I started the year in AAA, and I got called up like a
Shout
week.
out Tacoma. Is that Tacoma?
Shout out Tacoma.
Shout out Tacoma.
Yeah,
Shout out Tacoma.
Hey, the Mariners are still there, man. New stadium.
Yeah.
It no longer looks like a prison yard, but yeah, shout out Rainiers. And so I got called up like a week before Mother's Day, right? And so how it works is the bat companies usually, they see who breaks camp. And then they start working on their Mother's Day, their Father's Day, the blue, the pink, everything like that. And so I was just too late, man. I started in AAA, and so I get called up, and then it just came up in conversation, I think. And anyways, Griffey finds out that I don't have a pink bat. He's like, "Oh man, that's not going to work," So he's junior, right? So he just makes a couple phone calls, and right before Mother's Day, there's a pink bat waiting for me in my locker, which was sweet. And that's the kind of guy he is, man. Like a lot of people, unless you know him personally, a lot of people don't understand that there's very few people that you'll know for what they did on the back of their baseball card. And obviously Griffey's one of them, right? Just a legendary player. But he's an even better teammate in person than he was player, if you can believe that or not.
I believe it.
Unbelievable. Anyway, so yeah, going to my first career home run. It's Mother's Day now. And I get a 2-0 fastball from Irvin Santana when he was pitching for the Angels, and hit it right center, line drive, and like just over the fence. And you're talking about like, it when you hit it. I didn't realize it because it was a low liner, but that feeling that you get where you square it up and you don't even feel it on the hands. I knew I hit it. I knew I hit it hard. Anyways, so, and again, we're going back to Safeco Field. It's now T-Mobile. I'll always call it Safeco. But there's some room in between the fence and then the first row, right, of the stands. And so I hit it right in there. And luckily, our bullpen catcher was able to kind of wedge his way in between the fence and the stands and the fan, and he was able to like squeak in there and go grab it and then give it to me after the game. And so my mom was actually in the stands for that one, which was pretty cool. And so I ended up giving it to my mom. She gave it back to me years later. Or not years later, but the following year. And so for those of you who don't know, my mom was battling cancer for 13 plus years, battling breast cancer. And a week before, so we fast forward now to 2011, right? And so a week before the season started, I come to find out that she was basically given, only a couple months to live at this point. It was only a matter of time. And so I had my home run ball, and my mom ended up passing away in August, unfortunately, of the following year. And I ended up putting that home run ball in like a little case and putting it in her coffin and burying it with her. So I was there for my first homer, and she got to, keep it for the rest of her life. So
I'm not the most emotional guy. So let me get this straight. Your childhood hero, Ken Griffey, got you a pink bat. It's your first dinger in the big leagues on Mother's Day, and your mom got the ball after the game.
Mom was there in the stands. I was able to give it to her after the game. Wow. And then, and like I said, she passed away the following year after a 13-year battle of breast cancer. And that was kind of my goodbye to her. I gave it back to her. So,
wow. Michael, I can't thank you enough. That story in itself. Captain Canada. I mean, you've been a joy when you were playing to watch. I know the whole country kind of rallied behind you, representing us in the Olympics. The first official guest on Film Never Lies. That story is going to live with me and a lot of Canadians forever. So I know you're working for the Mariners now. I know Baseball Canada, you're a great representation for that organization well. I can't thank you enough for being on here, and thanks for sharing the stories, and go Mariners.
Go Mariners, baby. Luke, thanks for having me. You're doing big things, dude. Enjoy watching you. Appreciate you having me, and we'll stay in touch.
Sounds good, Michael. Talk soon. Once again, I want to thank Michael Saunders. What a phenomenal first guest, sharing those stories. Captain Canada, also known as the Condor, another nickname, which I'm sure we'll get into another time. But let's get to some film right now. And one of my favorite moments from this week was actually the Thursday night game with Joe Flacco. So when we get this thing up here, I'm going to tell you, I'm watching this game, getting ready to go on Jay Show. Look at the screen right now. It's a division game. It's a Thursday. The Steelers are down 6 points. It's 2nd and 10. You're on your own 10-yard line. The Bengals are on their own 10. I'm like, man, if Pittsburgh makes a stop here, they could come back, find a way to win this game. It was a huge moment. So I'm watching it, and then this happens. Roll the tape here. Boom. Joe Flacco at 40 years old. This is a zone read. Look at him. It gets the first, slides, and I'm like, there's no way. He's been here for less than 2 weeks. There is no way anyone in their right mind is having Joe Flacco run a zone read with potentially the season on the line. Again, the Bengals needed this win. So I'm like, my mind is blown. The man is 40. He's never been a mobile guy. This interview afterwards made it 10 times better for me and also made things make a lot more sense. Check this out.
Can you walk us through the play where somehow you did a little zone read, pulled it, and ran for 10 in the first down?
So listen, there was a handful of plays today that I was like, what is he saying? We have these formations that end in F, and I was not getting it. That one, I read off my wristband. It was correct. Jamar lined up on the ball. Noah lined up off. Jamar was supposed to be off the ball. Yeah. He was supposed to counter motion and bluff that end. Yeah. And when he was on the ball and the play clock was running down, I was like, screw it. I was just going to hand it off, but he came off the edge so damn quick. I was like, all right, I haven't done this since my probably first or second year, but I'll do it now.
I was in tears when you took
so good. It felt good. It felt good. I can't lie.
It felt good. It felt good is what he says. So to give you what he's basically saying is in this concept, they leave the DN unblocked. But what they were supposed to do is have a receiver pretend like he's coming back. On the way back, when he says he bluffs him, he basically stands in his way to slow him down. In that split second, gives the running back enough time if he has to cut back. But he looked up there, the play clock's going down, and Noah Fant and Jamar Chase Jamar's on the ball. So he's like, I don't have enough time to sit here and be like, Noah, get on, Jamar, get off, then do the motion. So just screw it. I'll just run a zone read at 40 years old. I think part of what worked for it, and it reminded me of the Peyton Manning touchdown years ago when he was playing for Denver, was it was such a crazy thing to call that nobody on planet Earth saw it coming, and it ended up being a huge play in the game. So I love that interview. For those of you who hadn't seen it, I kind of wanted to share that moment, one of the craziest things that happened this week. The Bengals, they're a game and a half out, but one game in the win column behind the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFC North. Be interesting to see if they can do anything from here on out. The craziest game of the weekend, we got to get into it a little bit, was really not even, I wouldn't say the craziest game, the craziest fourth quarter was Denver versus the New York Giants. And obviously New York's got Jackson Dart and Scattaboo, so that team's got a lot of life right now as far as energy goes. But to me, and I felt for this guy when I saw his video, was the Brian Burns walking into the locker room after the game. And he's got some explicit language. We're going to show this to you now.
117. Oh my fucking God, bro. The fucking Bengals lose that stupid ass shit. Hey.
When I see that, I feel for the guy. You know, Brian Burns is obviously a tremendous player in this league. The Giants are a bit of a laughing stock for everybody. They're 2-5, and this is where the NFL gets so interesting to me. Because they're 2-5, but let's go back to the fourth quarter of the Cowboys game, which if they had a better defensive play call in his mind, or I'm sure in Shane Bowen, the defensive coordinator, if they had better execution, they beat Dallas. So you lose that game, and you have the Denver Broncos dead to rights in this game. And you lose this one, you flip that around, and the Giants are 4-3. And a lot of that is self-inflicted. So I get, Brian Burns saying this stuff. Obviously, you don't want to bury anyone on the team, the coach, whatever. But it's frustrating as a player sometimes, especially a talented one like him, where you go in, you have a great 3 quarters of a great defensive performance. And really, I'm going to go 3.5 quarters. And in your mind, your own coach puts you in a bad spot, or your unit. And a lot of the guys can't really say these things because they're not as talented as Brian Burns and have the kind of contract or the leverage that he does. But I don't hate this. I know a lot of people be like, man, he shouldn't be saying this, shouldn't be yelling. Like, the reality is for players, and I'm a bit biased, but if the situation were reversed and, it was all his fault, the New York media, the New York fans, whomever's following the Giants would be like, man, if Brian Burns didn't do this, we would have won. Okay, and all athletes have been there. It's part of the gig. So, like, I love the accountability of this. I really do. Again, obviously he's not thinking he's being filmed at the time. But at the end of the day, Shane Bowen needs to step up and be like, I am not doing a good job late in these games in the fourth quarter because my guys aren't executing it. They think I'm putting them in a bad spot. And the New York Giants, who are 2-5, should theoretically be 4-3 if they had better late game fourth quarter play. All right, so weekly we're going to talk about my top 5 power rankings in both the NFC and AFC. And it'll be a bit fluid, but we got to really dig into this. And this does not mean the record. These are teams that I think have a legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl or be in the Super Bowl from each side. So as of right now, we'll start with the NFC. My number 1 team is the Los Angeles Rams. And you could sit here and say, that's ridiculous, yada, yada, yada. Stop. This team should be undefeated. They've lost 2 games. The game to Philly, they dominated them in the trenches on the offensive line and defensive line. What happened? Missed kicks. You missed 2 field goals. One was at the end of the game. Oh, to win the game that was returned for a touchdown. We all remember that. And if anybody was on the spread for the overdrive especially, one of the worst beats of all time. But you look at the way Matthew Stafford's playing right now. Unbelievable. You look at the offense these guys have. Last week, they don't have Puka Nacua, who's on an absolute tear right now. And it was like they didn't miss a beat. Devontae Adams has turned back the clock. Him and Matthew are going to continue to get more chemistry every week. We already talked about Puka Nacua. Their tight ends are by committee. They've been awesome. Matthew Stafford's slinging it around. You got one of the greatest offensive coaches in the game right now in Sean McVay. Your offensive line looks very, very solid. And now you go into Kyron Williams and Blake Corum as your spill guy. Where's the weakness on this offense? It doesn't exist. And defensively, they're young, but they make a ton of plays, and they're a very, very solid unit. If it wasn't for a kicking problem, and we'll get into their second loss, it was an overtime loss to a division rival, the San Francisco 49ers, where they missed an extra point and a field goal in regulation. And yes, you heard me say that right. They went into overtime. So again, and it's not really that close right now. If you want the most consistent performing team right now in the NFC, number 1 is the LA Rams. 2-3, we'll get a little quicker here. I'm filming this before this epic Monday nighter. It's a clash tonight, but 2-3, I'm going to put the winner of the Bucs-Lions tonight on Monday night. The Lions have looked like a wagon all year, minus 2 games. Those 2 games, week 1 against Green Bay, tough situation. They go in. Micah's obviously the new addition to Green Bay. Lambeau Field, although Dan Campbell has had success there, Lambeau Field is a very, very tough place to play at any time of the year. So they took a beat down there, and Kansas City got after him a little bit last week. I still like the Lions at the 2-3 spot. And again, tied with them, depending on how things go tonight, a bit of a crazy one, but I've got the Bucs there. Again, whoever wins tonight, I'll put it 2. Whoever loses, I'll put it 3. And the reason being for the Bucs is because of one man and one man only, Baker Mayfield. 2 men. Second man is Vita Vea. Baker Mayfield, though, it's one of the feel-good stories of the NFL right now. I mean, this guy goes to Cleveland, and from what I thought did a phenomenal job in Cleveland, but was run out of town by their front office for Deshaun Watson, which we will get into in a later episode. He gets bumped around a little bit. Carolina, he comes in for L.A., has to follow up Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. He's lost Mike Evans for most of the year. He hasn't had Chris Godwin for most of the year. He's got a rookie in Emeka Egbuka who right now looks like an all-pro. Baker Mayfield is willing this team to wins. And I mentioned Vita Vea, most underrated D tackle in the NFL. You don't run the football against Vita Vea. He can absolutely wipe out all inside run game. So when you have a playmaker like that at D tackle, and you've got a playmaker like Baker Mayfield and the way he's just absolutely rolling right now, that gives you a top 3 spot for the Bucs and somewhat of a weak division. Now we go into 4, and Eagles fans, I'm really sorry, but I've got you at 4. And you can say, hey, what's going on here? The defense has been very susceptible, giving up some yards and some points. They haven't looked as dominant as last year. That's just a fact. Don't shoot the messenger here. But the biggest glaring issue of why this team isn't won, and I know Hurts dominates. He dominates all, the throwing, and the receivers are mad. What has happened to this run game? What has happened to this run game? We went off Saquon Barkley last year, having one of the greatest rushing seasons in the history of the NFL, to a very, very stale, stagnant run game with Saquon this year. New offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo, I mean, he's in a lot of hot water for Philly fans. So until they get this run game sorted, they're going to be on the very edge of the top 5 for me. Number 5, I had a few spots I could put in, but I'm going to go with Green Bay. I haven't loved the way Green Bay has played. They've had great moments. Week 1, they've looked good. Obviously, the tie to the Cowboys was just a very, very tough situation because that's not a team you want to tie, especially with that defense. There's been moments where they just don't seem to click. I'll say this. You kind of wish if you're a Green Bay fan that you had a number 1 wide receiver. I know that there's this thing, and we'll get into Buffalo here in a sec, about how, hey, everybody eats. And you look at, I'll point my finger directly at Kansas City. What happens when Rashee Rice comes in, a true number 1? Everybody eats a lot more. And I think that's what Green Bay is lacking right now, is that just absolute stud in the wide receiver room. Golden, the rookie, could potentially do a lot of things as the year goes on. So right now, I do like Green Bay at 5, but there's a lot of other teams you can sub in there. Switching gears real quick, we'll go to the AFC. So again, records not, I don't care what records are. I'm talking the Super Bowl war tomorrow. The playoffs were to start tomorrow. Who I think would make it out? Hate to be the bearer of bad news, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. This team is awesome. Rashee Rice back in the fold. The man had 10 targets, 7 catches. Wasn't a crazy statistical day, but what he does is he opens everybody else up. 6 other players on their team had catches of 15 yards or more. So now all of a sudden when teams have to lock in on, hey, how do we stop Rashee Rice because he's a true number 1 guy for them, and he did not miss a beat with Patrick Mahomes. We're throwing back shoulder fades in the end zone, coming off the knee injury and the suspension. Perfectly placed ball, perfect route, quarterback, wide receiver on the same page. So when you have a guy like this and then you have the offensive play mind guru, whatever you want to call it, of Andy Reid, look at the gadgets you're going to get going. And now we're going to see the clock turn back where, okay, we sub in Tyquan Thornton, who's not going to see a ton of snaps, but all of a sudden he's going to have a 50-yard catch. We all remember the Chiefs of old. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news for non-Chiefs fans. The Chiefs of old are back. Travis Kelce, who's the greatest pass-catching tight end in the history of the NFL, might be their 4th best option. Are you kidding me? Chiefs are number 1, and I even get into the defense. Well, again, there's going to be a ton of Chiefs chat on that. 2 is maybe the most shocking for me, but you got to give the Devils due. It's the Indianapolis Colts at 6-1. Who would have tip your cap to the front office, give the flowers to the coaching staff, and Indiana Jones. Danny Dimes no longer exists. Danny Dimes in New York used to be the butt of everyone's joke. We all know the early on play in his career when he takes off in the zone read and he trips while going in for the touchdown. That guy doesn't exist anymore. Indiana Jones is here and here to stay. And then you add in the fact that they have, I don't know why he's not talked about more. He should be a household name. He's just a phenomenal runner. And Jonathan Taylor, that whole receiving core, and you add in this budding star, the rookie Tyler Warren at tight end. The way Daniel Jones is operating, the offensive line, you got Quentin Nelson in here. I mean, this team is the real deal. I know this might surprise people, but Daniel Jones and the Indianapolis Colts are at my number 2 spot in the AFC right now, and they are an absolute wagon. Oh, and by the way, their division isn't that tough. So I got Indy at number 2. Buffalo fans, I know you thought I'd leave you off the list. It's a pretty simple one. They're at number 3 right now, and the reason being is Josh Allen. They're a bit banged up, and their defense has a lot of issues. They're very thin at defense, and they are not super physical. They're not an incredible defensive unit. But the reality is when you have a man as talented as Josh Allen, you can beat anyone on any day. So, again, we can kind of go into some certain things. I think that it's been a bit of a trend in Buffalo, and the reason being is that their offense, same principle as in the NFC with the Packers, you'd love to see a number 1 guy. Keon Coleman I don't think has developed as fast as everybody hoped. Dalton Kincaid would also fall into that category. He's had some great moments, as is Keon, but not a guy that you're going to come and guarantee 10, 12 targets to. Now, there is a school of thought for me that perhaps they don't want a number 1 guy. And I hope this isn't the thought in Buffalo. I'm not in Buffalo. But let's go back to the Stephon Diggs era. As soon as kind of that situation ended, it almost seemed like Josh was playing more free, taking what the defense gave him. And maybe that's what they are trying to avoid, getting a perennial guy in there because they don't want the situation where Josh feels pressure to get somebody the ball. You know, even last season, when they got Amari Cooper, I thought, wow, this is the piece they need. This offseason, it was Josh Palmer, and they barely used the guy. So I'm not sure what the thought process is there, but Buffalo right now is coming in at number 3, and Bills fans, be mad at me all you want. The reason they're even that high is simply because of Josh. Outside of that, got a very good run game, great back, but I think that Josh really keeps this team in the top 5. Number 4, I feel sick saying this. The Mike Vrabel-led New England Patriots. It's like shocking to hear this. I mean, right now they're leading the division, obviously, but Drake May is playing unbelievable. The accuracy, he's a great runner. We don't think of him as a scrambler, but when he needs to, he can extend plays with his feet, use his legs, scramble to throw, scramble to run. Vrabel's got the defense humming. It's like old school Patriot ball, just very fundamentally sound. The team is completely bought in. Obviously, a couple weeks ago, they knocked off Buffalo. They're leading the division. They've got a very good, the tight ends, you got Henry and Austin Hooper, 2 veteran guys that can really get the job done. Hooper had an unbelievable touchdown catch this weekend. Stephon Diggs seems to be bought in. It's a bit of by committee there, but Diggs is the number 1 guy. I mean, it's good times in New England right now, and I cannot believe how quickly Vrabel has changed his culture. And rounding in the top 5, they've looked, it's kind of suspect at times this year, but I'm going with Denver. And I don't feel great about Denver at the 5 spot. Even the last win, the crazy game, which we'll get into some of the drama in that against the Giants, you know, they seem to find a way to get things done. And Bo Nix has been hot and cold at times, but you know who hasn't been hot and cold has been this defense. I mean, they're sacking the quarterback at an unbelievable clip. They make a ton of plays. You got Patrick Surtain, who can shut down pretty much anyone in the league. So the Denver Broncos are coming in at number 5 right now on my top 5 for the AFC. And with that, episode 1 is in the bank. Again, thanks for joining and hope you enjoyed it. Looking forward to next week.